Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon joins us now. He's a retired Air Force Brigadier General. Congressman, you have been a vocal supporter of continued U.S. aid to Ukraine. You reacted on Twitter or X to this attack by saying, quote, Putin has sown the wind. It is now reaping the whirlwind. Explain to our viewers what you mean by that.
Well, your clip earlier today said it right. This is a war of choice. Putin didn't have to invade Ukraine. Ukraine's an innocent country, wanted to be a democracy, wanted free markets, wanted to be part of the West. And Russia wants to dominate Ukraine and make it a subservient nation. There's one problem. The Ukrainians do not like that. They detest being under Russian rule. They have centuries of knowledge of what that means. I mean, Joseph Stalin killed 4 million Ukrainians alone in the 1930s, and that's just one chapter. But they invaded Ukraine. They're bombing cities. And I've studied Clausewitz, Sun Tzu, Jomini, you name it. When you initiate a war, you don't know what's going to happen. The unexpected happens. And Russia's now paying for it. They've lost 830,000 military members, either dead or wounded. 830,000. Let's let that sink in. That's a huge number. Now they've just lost approximately 40% of their strategic bomber fleet. They're fighting a thinking, innovative people who are going to do their very best to defend their country from domination by Russia. They've made a terrible mistake, and Putin needs to find a way out of this somehow.
Russia laid out two options for a ceasefire after the most recent round of talks in Istanbul today. One option would grant Russia control over 4 major eastern regions of Ukraine illegally annexed by Russia in 2022. The other would require Ukraine to stop receiving all foreign military aid and intelligence, and Ukraine would have to agree not to mobilize the Ukrainian military. What's your reaction to this? Do you think Putin is just stringing Ukraine along here?
Well, he's stringing the president, Trump, along, if you ask me. He doesn't have any interest in peace with Ukraine. He's going to keep fighting until he thinks he cannot win. But what he's demanding is unacceptable. Imagine having this to our, said to our country, hey, we'll give you peace, but you got to surrender Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas. We wouldn't do that. And these provinces or states, if you will, of Ukraine have already been committed by Russia to be part of Ukraine in 1994 when Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons back to Russia, that their borders would be recognized and legitimized by Russia and by the United States and England, for that matter. And also to say that they can't mobilize their army to defend themselves against Russia, that is not right. And to say they can't align themselves with the West, this is Russia saying they want to dominate Ukraine. And if you're a Ukrainian patriot, there's 2 words to that. It's hell no. You're not going to do it. You're going to defend yourselves against this Russian domination that has been terrible. Bombing cities, kidnapping children, shooting POWs. This is what Russians do.
I want to turn to one domestic issue here because nearly 350,000 Nebraskans use Medicaid, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. You were opposed to going too far with any Medicaid cuts in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. You still voted to pass it. Obviously, this is probably not the last chance to vote on this bill because the Senate will almost certainly make changes to it, and then you'll have to vote on it again. What is your message to any Nebraskans out there who use Medicaid and are allowed to use it? I'm not talking about undocumented immigrants. I'm talking about people who have every right to use Medicaid, who are worried about losing their coverage, especially people whose small children depend on Medicaid.
Well, Medicaid is very important in Nebraska. 50% of it goes to children, but another 25% goes to handicapped or disabled adults, and the rest goes to more able-bodied adults who are under the safety net. And I would point out the CBO numbers are quite a bit lower than Kaiser's numbers, if I have read this correctly. But all the same, I wanted to be careful here, and I worked hard to point the reductions in areas I thought were tolerable. So I did focus on work requirements for able-bodied adults that don't have young children. And according to the CBO, about 4 million people in America are affected with that. And these requirements are actually quite gentle. 20 hours a week. It could be volunteer hours. It could be seeking the skill sets like welding or whatever it may be. If you're going to school or trying to get training in the trades, that all counts. but 72% of Americans in the last poll supported work requirements. And that was about a 300 million or $1 billion savings right there. And then the CBO said there were
Mm.
2.6 million people that are on ineligible or illegal. And I think, and so I wanted us to focus on those areas, and we did. Our hospitals did not want block grants. They didn't want the federal match
Yeah.
lowered, and I got those taken off the table. So I tried to do my best to mitigate and try to steer these reductions in areas that I thought were the most tolerable and that most Americans would support if they were given all the facts. You got to have all the
Okay.
information to make a decision. But I tried to do, we got about 8 million the areas that I focus on have about 8 million people involved, and it's workforce requirements,
Yeah.
it's ineligible people. For CBO, 1.2 million are ineligible, and there's 1.4 million they said are on illegally. And that's where I tried to put the focus,
Yeah.
and that's what we did.
All right, Congressman. I really appreciate your time. Nebraska Congressman
Thank
Don
you.
Bacon, a Republican. Thank you so much.